Assalamualaikum and hi everyone. My name is Nur Farhana binti Saiduddin and my ID number is KNJ2005100068. Before we start, let me introduce my friends.
Hi and Assalamualaikum. My name is Nur Alia Natasha binti Muhammad Tajubi.
Hi, Assalamualaikum. My name is Nur Azrin binti Muhammad Zoni. My ID number is KNJ2005106664.
Hi and Assalamualaikum. My name is Nuzarit Sofia binti Zamri and my ID number is KNJ2005101148.
My name is Nur Aina Andura binti Sudin. My ID number is 2005100601.
In this video, we will be presenting our assignment, which is the sampling technique that was used in the journal we have studied. Sampling is very useful in research. It is one of the most important elements in determining the accuracy of our research results. If something goes wrong with our sample, it will be reflected directly in the final result. Depending on the need and situation, we might use a variety of techniques to collect samples. To begin, let me explain the definition of sampling. Srikan Tadakaluru 2020 defines sampling as the process of selecting a group of individuals from a population in order to study them and characterize the population as a whole. Meanwhile, Sima Singh 2018 stated that a sample is a subset of the population and sampling is the process of selecting a sample.
Introductions Journal A. The title begins influence of leadership style, motivation and work disciplines on employee performance in PT Dayana Cipta. The researchers' names on the Journal A are Richard Christian Turang, which is the International Business Administration IBA program. The next one is Paulus Kindagan, which is the Management Department. And the last one is Jones Tumiwa, the Faculty of Economics and Business. They are from Samratulangi University, Manado, Indonesia. They are also the ones looking for information about the journal. So this journal's name is Jurnal Berkala Ilmiah FNC Volume 15 Nombor 04 Tahun 2015. The objective of the journal is to evaluate the impact of influence of leadership styles on employee performance in HR academic. The finding was founded that the company's strength is the employees' great performance in order to achieve company's goal. Move on to the next journal, Journal B. The titles of this journal is Influence of Leadership Styles on Community Development Programs Implementation in Rural Communities of Akwa, Ibom State, Nigeria. The researcher's name is Okuji Olufemi Owezu, which is the Department of Educational Management. The name of Journal B, an international multidisciplinary journal. Ethiopia, Volume 8, 2 Serial Nombor 33, April 2014, 83-95. The objective of this journal is to investigate on how leaders style in handling and communicating goals between followers. So, it was found that the styles of an authoritative leaders play a role towards employees in the workplace.
Okay, next I will continue with Journal A, Convenient Sampling Technique. What is Convenient Sampling Technique? So, Convenient Sampling Technique defined as a method adopted by researchers where they collect market research data from conveniently available pool of respondents. Convenient sampling is a type of sampling where the first available primary data source will be used for the research without additional requirements. Okay, so for your information, primary data is a data which is we get directly from the respondents. In cases where there are large populations, researchers use a variety of sampling technique. Okay, next is researchers usually prefer using convenient sampling as it is quick and easy to deliver results. When collecting feedback on various brands or organization, which is you can use convenient sampling to get a feedback from a customer or users of the brands or organization. And then the last one is when researchers don't have access to the full target population for a representative sample. So, so in Journal A, we can see that they use their own company to make a research, which is company need to make investigation on the influence of leadership style, motivation, and work discipline on employee performance. So that they use convenience sampling to and take a few responder from the company. Not all, but most of them be their respondent for the research. And that's all for Journal A.
Now it is my turn to explain the sampling technique that was used in Journal B. According to Journal B, 3 sampling techniques are being used, which are simple random sampling, purposive random sampling, and stratified random sampling. In simple random sampling, each observation in the population has an equal chance of being selected, and every possible sample of a given size has the same chance of being chosen. Not only that, this method is the simplest of all probability sampling techniques since it just involves a single random selections and requires little information of the population. Then, because randomization is used, any research conducted on this sample should have excellent validity of the results. This technique can be done in one of 2 ways, through the lottery or through the random number generator. The method of lottery is the most primitive and mechanical example of random sampling. In this method, you will have to number each member of the population in a consequent manner. Write the numbers in separate pieces of paper. These pieces of papers are to be folded and mixed into a box. Lastly, samples are to be taken randomly from the box by choosing folded pieces of papers in a random manner. Meanwhile, the random number method involves assigning a number to each individual. Then, select a subset of the population at random using a random number generator or random number tables. To create random numbers, individuals may use Microsoft Excel's random number function. As I previously said, 3 sampling techniques are used in Journal B: simple random sampling, purposive random sampling, and stratified random sampling. However, I'm more focused on the simple random sampling technique because it was used to choose respondents from the communities in Journal B. Then, the state in Journal B was then selected using the purposive random sampling technique, while the local governments were selected using the stratified random sampling technique. Purposive sampling, also known as judgmental, selective, or subjective sampling, which researchers choose individuals of the population to participate in their surveys based on their own opinion. Meanwhile, stratified sampling is the method to use when you want to ensure that specific traits are proportionally represented in the sample. You divide your population into strata, for example by gender or race, and then choose at random from each of these subgroups. That's all from me. Next, I will pass to the next presenter.
Okay, hi, I'm going to present about non-probability sampling for the Journal A. Non-probability sampling is a sampling technique in which the researcher chooses sample based on his or her own subjective judgment rather than random selection. It is less a rigorous method. The researcher's knowledge is mainly reliant on the sampling strategy. It is carried out by observation and it is commonly used in qualitative research. Okay, last, in contrast to probability sampling, non-probability sampling is a sampling method in which not all members of the population have an equal chance of participating in the study. Every person in the population has an equal probability of being chosen. Okay, next for the probability sampling. For the journal B, probability sampling is a method of selecting a population for a systematic research using probability theory as a guide. The researcher chooses a sample from the population to estimate attributes for. Okay, next, in a population of 100 people, for example, each person has a 1 in the 100 chance of getting chosen. These odds are not equal in non-probability sampling. For example, if a person lives close to the researcher or has access to a computer, they may have a better chance of getting chosen. Probability sampling provides the best opportunity for obtaining a sample that is truly representative of the population. Okay, last is random selection is used in probability sampling, which allows you to make strong statistical references about the entire group.
Advantages for non-probability. The first one is cost-effective. By definition, non-probability sampling is a sampling strategy in which the researchers pick a sample based on the researcher's subjective assessment rather than random selection. It's a more learning approach. For exploratory research, such as a pilot survey, non-probability sampling is either deploying a survey to a smaller sample compared to predetermined sample size. This strategy is used by researchers when random probability sampling is impractical to do owing to time or financial constraint. Non-probability sampling has the advantage of being simple to use and can also be utilized when probability sampling is not practicable when you have a very small pollution to work with. When no sample frame, complete data of the entire pollution is available. This way can be used. This method saves money and time, and a bigger sample may be picked by assigning number to the sample and then selecting random number from the largest sample. Next is simple to use and can also be utilized. Non-probability sampling is a simple method of sampling that does not need a lean procedure. It's quick and efficient. As a result, the time saved may be put toward analyzing the data and drawing conclusions. The researcher's knowledge is mainly reliant on this sampling strategy. It is carried out by observation and it is commonly used in qualitative research. In comparison to probability sampling, non-probability sampling is a sampling approach in which not everyone in the population has an equal chance of participating in the research. Each person has a certain likelihood of getting chosen. Non-probability sampling provides extensive description of the sample in question. Before begin doing research, we simply need to spend a brief amount of time gathering a sample size that we believe is adequate. It is not affected by low response rate, which is a common problem with probability sampling approach. It can serve as a rapid starting point for investigating or exploring whether or not there is a problem within a specific audience group or target market, potentially leading to extra investment or research opportunities. And lastly, it is non-technical. With the COVID-19 virus, all work is done online. This is because the government wants to break the chain of the virus. To ensure that the people are not too affected, many applications and various websites have been created to make it easy for those who want to continue working. Because of its simplicity, this sampling approach does not need any technical understanding. It does not need any specialized knowledge and is not at all time-consuming. Although there are numerous benefits to adopting a non-possibility, it does have a certain disadvantage. The time and resource required to obtain the entire list of a certain population, as well as the bias that can develop when the sample set is not large enough to effectively reflect the entire population. The first one is the difficulty in estimating sampling variabilities and identify possible bias. The occurrence of sampling bias, which occur when a sample selection process gives an unfair advantage to a certain individual of a population, is the most significant disadvantage. Non-probability sampling data are difficult to scale up and utilize to establish broad generalization about the population. Sample can be populated with people who are more likely to consent to participate in research because they have a strong opinion that they wish to convey using some method, such as a volunteer or convenience sampling. This can disturb the research validity. Research or selection bias can occur when we apply purposeful selecting criteria to judge the eligibility of individual for a sample. Our viewpoint and opinion may have an impact on the sample, which in turn may have an impact on the research finding. Pre-screening tests or other obstacles may be imposed on the sample, making it difficult for some selected people to participate. This adds more level of complexity, which may prevent a suitable candidate from being included in the sample. Number 2 is unknown proportion of the entire population is not included in the sample group, lack of representation of the entire population. Because this is a technique for people to select one of the other candidate. Some individual may share a link or other information with others in order for them to win or for the candidate she or he select to win. This is why we can tell how much population there is. The sample size is likewise unknown because there is no method to measure the border of a research relevant. We may later discover that we require more or fewer individuals, wasting time and money. The downside of the non-probability sampling method is that an unknown proportion of the entire population was not sampled. This entails that the sample may or may not represent the entire population accurately. 3.4. The result of the research cannot be used in generalization pertaining to the entire population. And the last one is lower level of generalization of research finding compared to probability sampling. With certain approaches, such as volunteer or convenience sampling, sample can be stocked with people who are more likely to consent to engage in research because they have a strong belief that they want to express. This may skew the validity of the result. As the result, we maybe can get the proper answer that we want and maybe can take or use that candidates for our work. We move to advantage for possibility. The first one is cost effectiveness. This method is both cost and time effective, and a bigger sample can be picked by assigning number to the sample and then selecting random number from the larger sample. Both probability sampling and non-probability sampling are techniques used to sample members of a population and select them to participate in a study. However, both types of sampling technique have difference in their processing. The first thing we should know is that while non-probability sampling give every member of a population an equal chance of being selected, but not everyone has equal chance of participating in a study. Probability sampling does not. This is because probability sampling can be calculated while non-probability sampling cannot. Although everyone has a chance of participating, not everyone has a chance of being selected. Secondly, it's easy to understand. Probability sampling is a simple method of sampling that does not require a lengthy procedure. It's quick and efficient. As a result, the time saved may be put toward analyzing the data and drawing conclusion. Probability sampling is based on the assumption that each member of a population has an equal and known chance of being chosen. In a population of 100 people, for example, each person has a 1 in 100 chance of being chosen. These odds are not equal in non-probability sampling. For example, if a person lives close to the researchers or has access to a computer, they may have a better chance of getting chosen. Probability sampling provides the best opportunity for obtaining a sample that is truly representative of the population. The last one for advantage of possibility, increased accuracy of sampling error estimation. Determining a suitable sampling frame based on the study question and goals. For example, a company employs 400 people, thus the sampling frame will be 400. Choosing an appropriate sample size For the purpose of this study, we may determine that a sample size of 16 employees is enough, choosing the most appropriate sampling procedure and sample. According to business research methodology, using a table of randomly produced integers, simple random sampling, the most basic kind of probability sampling approach may be used in this scenario. Websites like Generate Data, GradPad, Medcaro, and others may help you to complete this activity fast and simply. All that's left to do is now pick a beginning point in the table and look at the random number that emerge. Because the data in this scenario is 3 digits long, the random number must also be 3 digits long because your target population is just 400 people. You must disregard all random number after 400. Also, select a number just one, and if appear again, simply skip it and move on to the next. As a result, your sample group is made up of the first 16 distinct number between 001 and 400, which represents 16 employees of a company. There we no error with those 4 steps. Done for advantage of possibility, we move to disadvantage for possibility. The first one is change of selecting specific class of sample only. The main disadvantage of the probability sampling is that it's sometimes difficult or impossible to know a priori the probability of each unit in the population to be part of the sample. That is, draw a probability sample. This is particularly true in finite population. Possibility of merely selecting a specific class of sample if a surveyor is high to gather information about family members. There is a good likelihood that he or she will develop a pattern of counting from the oldest to the youngest, with the number only growing or decreasing. Only the oldest or most recent generation will be used as sample in this situation. And the last one is redundant and monotonous work, because the surveyor is forced to conduct a repeated job of assigning numbers and collecting data. There is a good probability that the surveyor will become bored and the system efficacy will deteriorate. There is a good probability that the surveyor will become bored and the system effectiveness will be lower. Despite randomization, the researchers can end up choosing similar research variable which affect the data quality. This is one of the reasons why there exists many random sample design, not only the simple random sample, such as a stratified sampling, two-stage sampling, multi-stage sampling, and anything else. Of course, increasing the complexity of the design increases the complexity of the estimators of mean and its standard error.
Okay, next I will proceed with the strength between convenience sampling technique and random sampling technique. Okay, I will start with convenience sampling technique first. Firstly, provide results quickly, which is in cases when time is limited and you need to collect data fast. Convenience sampling technique is used by many researchers. The simplicity factor of this non-probability sampling makes it a quick and easy procedure, unlike other non-probability samplings. Second, cheap method of sampling. Money is another factor it's safe. A researcher includes the people who are in close proximity to the researchers, hence it is a cost-effective market research tool. And the last one is easy to use. The respondents in convenience sampling technique are readily available to the researcher. The member of the sample can be friends, families, employees, regular customers, and random people on crowded streets. That's all for convenience sampling, and then we will continue with the random sampling technique. Then strength for random sampling technique, which is it is the simplest form of data collection. This type of research involves basic observation and recording skills. It requires no basic skills out of the population base or the items being researched. It also removes any classification errors that may be involved if other forms of data collection were being used. Although the simplicity can cause some unintended problems when a sample is not a genuine reflection of the average population being reviewed, the data collected is generally reliable and accurate. And secondly, is findings can be applied to the entire population base. Because of the processes that allow for random sampling, data collected can produce results for the larger frame because there is such little relevance of bias within the findings. And the last one is there is an equal chance of selection. Random sampling allows everyone or everything within a defined region to have an equal chance of being selected. This helps to create more accuracy within the data collected because everyone and everything has a 50-50 opportunity. That's all for strength between convenience sampling technique and random sampling technique.
Let me continue this. Why research are important in research? So, everyone who has ever worked on a research project understands that resources are finite time, money and people do not come in endless quantity. As a result, most research programs attempt to collect data from a subset the population rather than the full population, the census being one of the few exceptions. So the first one is due to the fact that sampling enables researchers to save time. It takes time to contact everyone in a population, and undoubtedly, some people will not reach to the first attempt to reach them, necessitating further follow-up time on the part of researchers. Random sampling takes substantially less time than surveying the entire population. Why? Non-random sampling is nearly always quicker than a random sampling. As a result, sampling saves time for researchers. Number 2, sampling allows researchers to collect sufficient data to address the study question without having to ask the entire population, which saves time and money. Whether the investigation is quantitative or qualitative, however, sampling vary. Power analysis and random selection are the two aspects of quantitative sampling. So the last one is collecting data. The minimal sample size required to ensure that the sample data are statistically significant is determined using power analysis to guarantee that there is no bias and that the complete population is appropriately represented in the sample. Random sampling is essential. It's worth noting that for random sampling to function, the sample must come from a non-pollution with every person or object being chosen at random. Data saturation, or when then begin to reappear within each consecutive participant and through the data processing phase, is the aim of qualitative sampling, which require considerable fewer participants than quantitative sampling.
Next, how researchers use convenience sampling technique. For Journal A, researchers used to have feedback on how many slices of pizza consumption in cafe each week. If high school students are conducting a study on the average consumption of pizza in the cafeteria each week, they could call their classmates and ask how many slices they consume during the week. In this example, the researcher inadvertently excludes a great proportion of the population. A convenience sample is students who buy slices pizzas that are accessible or a self-selection of individuals willing to participate, which is exemplified by your volunteers. Using convenience sampling method, you can send a link to the online questionnaire to individuals on your mobile phone's contact list, to individuals you are connected to via social networking websites such as Facebook, LinkedIn, Google, and to individuals whom you know in person. That's all for how researchers use convenience sampling technique.
Now I will explain how researchers use simple random sampling techniques. Using simple random sampling allows researchers to generalize about a certain population while avoiding bias. Inferences and predictions about the population can be formed using statistical techniques without having to survey or collect data from every individual in that populations. There are 6 steps to producing a simple random sampling: defining the population, choosing the sample size, listing the population, assigning numbers to the units, generating random numbers, and selecting the sample. For example, you are assessing leadership practices on work-life balance in ABC company that has 600 employees. You have chosen survey as the primary data collection method for this research. In this scenario, we can apply a simple random sampling method. The first step is we need to prepare a list of all 600 employees working for ABC company. Secondly, we need to assign a sequential number for each employee from 1 to 600. The sample size of 150 respondents might be enough to achieve research objective. Next, use a random number generator and generate 150 numbers from 1 to 600. It can be done by using software such as Research Randomize. Once random numbers are generated, in total 150 employees assigned with respective generated numbers are going to represent sample group members for your research. That's all from me. Thank you.
Okay, for the conclusion, however, we can conclude that leadership is the ability to direct a group of people in realizing a common goal. As we can see in the research sampling, this style gives the impression that the leaders really want to hear employees' thoughts and works as a team member. It is the link between the workers and their organization, its future plan and perceptions. That's all from me.